Religious conversion. Some people and religions support it. Most people can't stand it. So today I want to speak to you about why religious conversion is a problem, a big problem in the world that a lot of people don't like to talk about because it's such a sensitive issue. And we live in such a sensitive age where we can't openly speak about things. So first of all, to get into religious conversion, we have to look at a little bit of the history of religious conversion. And where we have to start but the Pacific Island nations. So, think of Tonga, think of Fiji, think of all of these sorts of places. And what has happened in those nations, those Pacific Island nations, for the last 1,000 years has been quite a shame, because a lot of the great culture of those nations have been lost, even though a lot of the people try to keep it alive. But it's taken a backseat really to Christianity. And once the Christian doctrine had reached the shores of those islands, the whole culture and their whole civilization was changed. And we have lost a lot of their ancient traditions and culture, and it's quite a shame. And it's something that has disappeared from the world, and we probably won't get that back because Christianity has sunk its roots deep into those island nations. Now, this is not a beat up on Christianity, but Christianity is obviously a good example of religious conversion because, let's be frank, they are the main religion that runs around the world trying to convert people. So we really need to ask then, is what Christianity did to those island nations, is that right or wrong? Why would they feel the need to go and indoctrinate some people that they've never met in their lives? And what is the purpose of trying to get followers and to bring people into this? I'll talk about this towards the end of the video, the psychology behind this. But, this is where a lot of trouble begins because, it may have worked hundreds or thousands of years ago, but is this idea of religious conversion on nations working today in an age where we're so open to new information and we have the internet and there's open source of knowledge and wisdom out there? Does it quite work? Now, this leads into India in saying this, because when we think of India, India has always been a hotspot for religious conversion, and it is a great example of why it is a problem. Now, India at the moment is receiving a lot of external criticism because of an anti-conversion law that is being proposed and implemented in India. And this is all due to the fact of especially Christianity coming into the nation and trying to impose Christianity on Hindus. And so they have this anti-conversion law. And a lot of people, obviously always externally, people know what's better for other people, which was the problem with the Pacific Island nations in the first place. They didn't need any help, they were fine. So this is always a problem. We're always interfering with each other. And so first we need to realize that India's history is not unlike that of the Pacific nations, actually. And it has a lot more history and a lot more invasions and a lot more religions coming in and trying to convince the Hindus and the Buddhists and the Jains and the Sikhs that what they are following is wrong. But what a lot of this external noise doesn't understand is that India is naturally pluralistic. It's naturally an inclusive nation. Hinduism is actually an inclusive religion. It's not really a religion, it's a culture. It's an inclusive culture. Hence why there are so many religions in India, even foreign religions in India. Hinduism is naturally pluralistic. It's naturally an inclusive culture. And that is why India is one of the great countries of the world, for its inclusive nature. Freedom of religion has been paramount throughout Indian history, as is encapsulated through an inscription to Ashoka. King Piyadasi Ashoka, dear to the gods, honors all sects, the ascetics, hermits, or those who dwell at home. He honors them with charity and in other ways. But the king, dear to the gods, attributes less importance to this charity and these honors than to the vow of seeing the reign of virtues, which constitutes the essential part of them. For all these virtues there is a common source, modesty of speech. That is to say, one must not exalt one's creed, discrediting all others, nor must one degrade these others without legitimate reasons. One must, on the contrary, render to other creeds the honor befitting them. So Ashoka knew way back then the importance of freedom of religion, of, we need to accept other religions and learn from them, and how good it is to, just be in harmony with other religions without trying to impose our own views upon other people, and so forth and so on. And this again comes back to India's natural pluralistic and inclusive nature. And this pluralistic and inclusive nature of India is showcased when the ancient Jews fled persecution in their home country 2,500 years ago and settled in India, and they never received any anti-Semitism or anything like that. So they had fled their homeland and they settled in India, and they never experienced any sort of persecution or they were not condemned by the Indian civilization. They were welcomed. Even after the Muslim conquest of the Indian subcontinent, India still embraced Islam. Actually, Islam now is the second largest religion in India, with a population of 200 million people. And when I think of India, I think of Islam. I think it's part of the furniture of India. It's one of the great religions of India, actually, when you think of it now. But Islam didn't come from India. The Muslims invaded India. But because of India's pluralistic and inclusive nature, they embraced Islam, and Islam has become part of the furniture of India. Actually, all external religions have been embraced by India. And this is something that a lot of news networks and that don't give them credit for. They have been embraced by India more than any other nation in the world. And they've been embraced alongside the great Indian traditions, such as Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism. But problems in India began when some religions took liberties in trying to convert Hindus. Christianity specifically has taken liberties in trying to convert Hindus and condemn Hindus for their own beliefs. If only a lot of Christians were just like the great Thomas Merton, a guy who could go to a country and not try to convert others, but instead go there and try to learn from the culture and the religion to enhance his own beliefs. If only some Christians were just like Thomas Merton. And probably the biggest problem, Christians do this in India and basically anywhere else because they've put themselves up on a pedestal and everyone else's beliefs is beneath them. And so some Christians actually believe that the billions of Hindus in India are bound for hell simply because they were born in the wrong place, into the wrong culture, as if this is somehow God's plan. This is the way that Christians try to rationalize it to other people. So God's got to be some sort of sick, twisted individual if he's putting billions of people in one landmass just because he wants to see them burn for eternity. But again, according to Christians, this is part of God's plan, which I must say is a borderline insane view of the world. But nevertheless, because of such insane beliefs, Christians have been converting some Hindus in India, not to a great degree, but it has been happening for hundreds and thousands of years. And they usually target the more poor and innocent communities in India, usually rural India, to try and, boost their stocks, their religious stocks in India. They, in some sense, have showed no respect to the culture that is accommodating them. And we need to remember, India did embrace Christianity, and there needs to be some sort of respect shown there towards the greater tradition in India, which is Hinduism. And so because the Hindus are naturally pluralistic and inclusive, the Christian religion in India has taken liberties in trying to gain followers. They're using this to their advantage, where they should be actually learning from Hinduism. Why is Hinduism so, accepting of other faiths? Why do they believe in interfaith? And why do they believe in learning from other religions? This is probably something that Christianity probably should, learn from, but they don't because they see it as an opportunity to gain followers. And so finally, the straw has broke the camel's back in India. where we are seeing that Hindus are finally standing up for themselves and their own beliefs. And this is actually a unique moment in time because it has never happened before where Hindus have actually stood up for their own beliefs and have said, hey, wait up a second, this is a Hindu nation and you're coming in here and trying to convert us to some sort of Western belief. They are not just standing up for Hindu beliefs, they are standing up for the great culture, the great Bharat culture. And if you want to learn more about the great Bharat, you should read a book by David Frawley called Awaken Bharat. It's a great book, an eye-opening book, and it'll kind of eliminate a lot of misconceptions you have about India and a lot of wrong views you have from external news sources and opinions about India and about Hinduism and so forth and so on. And so the people are standing up for this now. They are standing up and they are coming back into alignment with that ancient culture, which could have happened in the Pacific Island nations, but didn't happen. Maybe it's happening in India because India just has a lot of people, as we know. And we see this through the BJP and Modi, where they are trying to keep the great Bharat culture alive and making sure that the Sanatana Dharma, the Hindu beliefs, are at the top of the pedestal within the country, alongside the other native Indian religions, whether that be Sikhism, Jainism or Buddhism. So the BJP and Modi are helping this along, which is actually, if you notice, it's really making India a unique nation in the world, and it's making them something that I guess a lot of other nations actually pine to be, but can never be because they have fallen into this form of secularism where they've made a clear distinction between state and religion, where India is quite different because Hinduism quite isn't a religion, it's more of a culture. Bharat is a culture, and it's something that the people follow. It's down to the way they dress, down to the way they eat, everything. It's quite an amazing thing, especially if you go there, and that's why I love staying in India. It's the best country in the world, in my opinion. But there is a way to go about this. I don't support a lot of the violence and that in India. That there are some, we need to put this into perspective. There are small groups of Hindus that are going around and causing violence towards Hindus and Christians and so forth and so on. That is not to say that there hasn't been Christian violence towards Hindus. There has been in the past. And that was part of the reason why a lot of Hindus kind of, stood up and went, what's going on here? But I don't support any of that. And I think that a lot of Hindus need to remember their pluralistic, inclusive and peaceful nature, which is part of the Hindu belief system, and continue to follow that, but follow that with more intelligence where, hey, wait up, we need to draw a line in the sand here. We've got to stop this religious conversion, which is actually happening through the anti-non-conversion law. And so I personally am not opposed to that because I feel that that is their duty to protect the longest enduring culture in the world. We need to remember that. Bharat, India, is the longest enduring culture in the world. One of the reasons we could say why Christianity are trying to convert Hindus is because they themselves are losing members by the droves. And you see this in Europe and North America especially. You see that there is a decline in people claiming to be Christian. It's not significant, but it's enough to be worrying for the Christian religion, if we were to look, say, back at the statistics 100 years ago compared to now. There are many reasons for that. A lot more people in the world now are materialistic. There are a lot more atheists. There are a lot more people, especially in Europe and North America, who are becoming more attracted to Eastern traditions. You see a lot more Vedanta and yoga and Taoism and Buddhism and these sorts of traditions popping up in Europe and North America. And so whether that's right or wrong or good or bad, that's an open debate. It's not for you and I to decide. But we also need to remember that the Christian religion always have followed the conversion method. It's not something that's new. They're not just going around looking for members because they think that there's a decline in membership. It's always been around, and it's been part of the fabric of Christianity for a long time because of the silly belief that anyone who is not Christian is a heathen, which is kind of ridiculous. Just because you don't follow Christianity doesn't make you a heathen. I'm just going to throw it out there for you guys. You're not a heathen because you don't follow Christianity. This is a doctrinal problem, and it is something that Christians have to come to terms with, that, they have to have a deeper and a more vast understanding of what God is. They have to get to the Brahman or the Tao level to understand that we're all brothers and sisters. There's no such thing as like, they're heathens, they're right, they're wrong. This is kindergarten level spirituality. But when we talk about religious conversion and we talk about Christians trying to convert other people, what Christians need to realize, and other religions who try to convert, is you never see a Hindu, a Buddhist, a Jain, a Muslim, a Sikh. You don't see them going around knocking on people's doors with their little books and out in the street trying to draw people in to convert to their religion. We don't see that. You have to discover such paths naturally. They have to be part of your natural experience. You have to kind of stumble across them. And this is part of the reason why you've watched my videos. You're here to learn, and you stumble across this knowledge and you want to learn more. This is part of the experience. You don't go around beating the pavement and, hey, you should follow Hinduism. I mean, that would just be the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. I've never seen it, and you will never see that. You don't see people trying to convert other people from those traditions because they are based on nature. You have to come across them naturally, and that's actually the only way that you learn efficiently from those traditions. It's like being forced to learn mathematics when you have no desire to learn mathematics. You're not going to learn mathematics as well as someone who is naturally attracted to it. There are certain aptitudes people have for different things, and we need to realize that. So when someone comes across, say, Eastern spirituality, what we discuss mainly through my videos, is you have a certain aptitude for this and you're attracted to this, but in no way should you ever go out and try and hand out books and tell people you should do this and you should do that. That's against everything the Eastern traditions are. So for Christianity to survive and thrive, it needs to become a non-conversion tradition. This is important. For Christianity to thrive and even survive, it has to step away from this idea of religious conversion and be completely okay in the tradition it is. Be completely fine in what it is and having true faith in God instead of going out and trying to force it upon other people. That is to have a lack of faith. In saying all of that, in explaining the history and some of the situations in the modern world, we have to get down to the psychology behind religious conversion. And when we get down to the psychology, it is like anything within group mentality. What is driving it is tribalism. So the nature of conversion actually is tribalism. And we need to understand that tribalism is actually a weakness because it is based on survival. It is an ancient strategy that an individual would use to bind with the group, which would then ensure that individual's security. They would be able to eat as much as they want, they would be housed, they would be clothed. This is a strategy for survival. So we need to remember that's the kind of the crux of tribalism. You're trying to bind to a group, so then that ensures your security and safety. But what we need to remember, the great opportunity as a human is that we can transcend these survival instincts. This is also part of the spiritual path. We need to transcend these survival instincts that make us always move in the direction of survival instead of making us move in the direction of the heart and of the ultimate source. We must transcend tribalism because when you look out in the world, if we don't transcend tribalism, what is the end result? The end result of that mentality is fundamentalism. And that is part of the problem in the world, not just religious fundamentalists, but also nationalistic fundamentalists or fundamentalists in general. That is part of the mentality of tribalism and the end result of tribalism, because you start to believe that this group that you're a part of is the be-all and end-all and is above other groups. And so it should eliminate other groups or other beliefs that differ from it. And this keeps you in this little comfort psychological bubble without kind of opening up your mind to other possibilities and to other knowledge, which then you don't have to get rid of your original beliefs, but it can enhance your beliefs. Or you could then get rid of your beliefs. The choice is up to you. So fundamentalism leads to people believing that they are right and you are wrong. This is the nature of it. When you're running around thinking everyone else is wrong and you are right, this obviously leads to bad actions based on bad intentions, which are driven by tribalism. No one can actually follow their religion truthfully if they don't have an inclusive view of the world. If your mind is geared towards fundamentalism, then you are naturally going to be violent towards the world, and you're not going to be inclusive. And then your bad intentions are not there to help the world. They're not there to help even your own spiritual path, even your own religion. They are actually going to bring it more shame to the world, and it's going to then make a divorce between that religion and the world, where people don't really understand it and don't want to understand it because the intention maybe of a small group of people is making it look bad. So it is only when we have an inclusive view of the world will all of our religious, social and cultural problems evaporate. And we can learn a lot from India in this sense. We can learn a lot about their pluralistic and their inclusive nature, because we have to have an interfaith dialogue. We have to have an internation dialogue where we are approaching each other as friends and not enemies, and not above each other. We need to be approaching each other like this. We have to stop this idea that our beliefs are better than others and so forth and so on. But there has to be a commitment from all parties. So in relation to religious conversion, there has to be a commitment from a religion such as Christianity that they are not going to go around the world and trying to convert their religion on others. They've already done enough of that. Look at South America, look at the Pacific Islands, look at all of these places. We don't need more of that. We need more of people just accepting each other for what they are. That has happened. We can't erase the past. So we just need to learn from that. But in the present, we can learn from the past. And religious conversion hasn't always been the best course of action. There's been a lot of violence around it. It's never ended well. It's usually been an invader's mindset to invade a certain nation and to conquer it. I mean, I don't see how that can end in a peaceful way. And so it is a responsibility of all religions, especially Christianity, to make a commitment to become a non-conversion religion and to coexist with other religions and be happy. Be happy. It's all good. It's all good. We can all learn from each other, and that's the way we all learn anyway. So once we all make that commitment, not only on a group level, but on an individual level, where we embrace each other as brother and sister in the world, then and only then will the stupidity of religious conversion cease. Shanti, shanti, shanti.